This is your English listening practice podcast to help you learn and improve naturally. Hi everyone. Welcome to Quick English Fix. I'm Emily.
And I'm John. This is the podcast where you can relax, learn English, and enjoy listening. You don't have to do much. Just sit back and get comfortable.
Each time we talk about something new, it's a chance to pick up natural English while listening to everyday topics.
Today we're talking about how to build a self-study routine.
Have you ever tried to study on your own, but found it hard to stick with it? Maybe you didn't know where to start or how to stay consistent.
It's not easy, but the right routine can make a big difference. You don't need to do everything perfectly. Just find something that works for you.
So let's talk about it. Simple ideas to help you study smarter and stay on track.
Grab your tea, get comfy, and let's begin. So when it comes to building a self-study routine, the first step is setting a goal. And I don't mean something vague like, I want to learn English. It needs to be more specific.
Yeah, because learn English is so broad, right? It doesn't really give you direction.
Right. A good goal is clear about what you want to improve. Like maybe you want to work on your pronunciation so people can understand you better. Or maybe you're focusing on fluency so you can hold conversations more easily.
Or even something like building vocabulary. I think a lot of learners want to expand the words and phrases they know.
And sometimes it's a combination of things. Like you could aim to improve fluency while also growing your vocabulary.
But the key is to make it manageable. I've seen people set these massive goals like, I'm going to learn 1,000 words in a month. And that's just too much.
Yeah, that's where people struggle. They set goals that are way too big. And then when they can't keep up, they feel like they've failed.
I agree. For example, if you're setting a goal to learn vocabulary, maybe start smaller like 50 or 100 words instead of 500. It's not about cramming as much as possible.
No, it's more about understanding what you learn. You can learn 50 words really well and know how to use them. And that's way better than memorizing 500 words and forgetting them.
And it's not just about the numbers. It's about quality over quantity.
Also, everyone works at a different pace. So your goals should fit you. Maybe 50 words a month is fine for one person. But someone else might feel comfortable with just 10 or 20.
Right. And I think there's no shame in that. The important thing is that it feels realistic for you.
And flexible. Like if you realize halfway through that your goal isn't working, maybe it's too much or too little, you can adjust it.
Goals aren't set in stone. You're allowed to tweak them to fit your needs. And when you reach that goal, it's so satisfying. Even if it's something small, like learning 20 new phrases, it feels good to know you've made progress.
That's the thing. A good goal should challenge you, but it shouldn't overwhelm you. It should feel like something you can actually achieve.
So once you've set your goal, the next step is to make a schedule. You'll need one to help you stay on track and actually achieve that goal.
A schedule gives structure so you're not just studying randomly.
But it should match your pace and your habits. For example, think about what time of the day you feel most comfortable studying. When do you feel the most productive? Some people are sharpest in the morning, while others might prefer the afternoon, or even late at night.
Yeah, that's true. Not everyone works the same way. I know some people who love waking up at 5 a.m. to study. But for me, mornings are just not it.
Same here. I'm definitely not a morning person. But here's the thing. Even if your schedule is designed to fit your style, you have to be careful not to make it too comfortable.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, if your schedule is too flexible, it's easy to procrastinate. You might start thinking, oh, I'll just do it later. And then later becomes tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, I've done that too many times. So how do you make a schedule that works but doesn't let you slack off?
Well, what's your usual way of making a schedule?
I usually just set a block of time, like an hour after dinner, and call it my study time.
That's a good start. But instead of just saying, I'll study for an hour, you could break it down into smaller tasks, like spend 15 minutes reviewing vocabulary, then 20 minutes practicing speaking, and so on.
Oh, so you're saying I should be more specific with what I'm doing during that time?
Exactly. It makes the time feel more purposeful, and you're less likely to get distracted. Plus, it's easier to track your progress when you know what you've actually done.
That's smart. I like that. It makes it feel less overwhelming too, since you're focusing on one thing at a time.
And don't forget to be realistic with your schedule. It's better to set a shorter time that you can stick to than trying to cram in 2 or 3 hours and burning out.
Yeah, that's where I mess up sometimes. I'll try to do too much, and then I get tired and stop altogether.
That's why balance is so important. It's about making steady progress without overwhelming yourself. Okay, John, imagine this. You've made your schedule, and today it says you have 1 hour to practice pronunciation. Let's say it's at 7 p.m. Alright, I'm imagining it. Great. So you sit down at 7 p.m., ready to start. But then, you realize, oh wait, I need to find some materials to practice with. Then you start searching for a video, or a conversation to listen to. You're scrolling, trying to pick the right one. And then it hits you. Oh, I also need to grab my voice recorder. Or, wait, should I practice with this app or that website? Before you know it, you're checking options, figuring things out.
That sounds like a mess.
Exactly. And by the time you're actually ready to start, you look at the clock, and guess what?
It's already 7:15 p.m. So, I've just wasted 15 minutes without doing anything.
It's frustrating, right? Because you had the time, but you weren't really prepared to use it.
So, what's the best way to avoid this?
Well, what do you think the solution might be?
Maybe organizing everything beforehand? Like having your materials ready before the session starts?
That's exactly it. If you know you're practicing pronunciation today, you should have everything set up ahead of time. For example, create a playlist in advance with videos or audio clips you want to practice with. Pick one for that session so you're not wasting time scrolling.
That makes sense. Having it already would save so much time.
It really does. And it's not just about the materials. The place you study in should also be set. If you're using tools like a voice recorder, make sure it's charged and in the right spot. That way, when the clock hits 7 p.m., you can dive straight in and use the full hour to study.
Yeah, that would feel so much better than fumbling around for 15 minutes trying to figure things out.
You'll finish that session knowing you actually spent the full time studying, and that's such a satisfying feeling. It's all about preparation.
You know, one thing I've learned is that having a specific place just for studying makes a big difference. It helps you stay focused and actually feel like you're getting something done.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It really sets the tone when you have a space that's just for studying.
And it's not just about having a place. It's also about taking away distractions. Social media, for example. If you're constantly checking replies or scrolling through games, you're not really focused.
Like your brain is switching between tasks, and you don't fully get into the studying mode.
That's why I think it's important to leave only what's related to studying in that space. If it's a pronunciation practice session, for example, have your materials, maybe a notebook, and nothing else.
And if you need to use your phone for videos or audio, you can put it on airplane mode. That way you're not getting notifications or calls while you study.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Another thing is the space should be comfortable but not too comfortable. You don't want to feel like you're about to fall asleep. Well, for example, you could have a bottle of water nearby. Staying hydrated really helps you concentrate, especially if you're practicing pronunciation. Your voice needs it.
That's a great point. I always keep water with me when I study too. And maybe something like good lighting. You don't want to strain your eyes.
It's those little things that make studying easier and help you stay focused for the full hour.
And when your space is organized and free of distractions, it's so much more satisfying to finish a session. You know, you've actually used your time well.
Totally. It's all about creating an environment where you can really focus and feel good about the work you're doing. Also, one thing people get wrong about self-studying is thinking it means you have to do everything on your own. That's not exactly true. You can still stay connected to others while studying.
What do you mean? Like how?
Well, for example, there are group apps for learning where people share tips or study together. Or you could practice with a friend. Maybe even join a studying group once in a while.
But if you're joining a studying group, isn't that kind of the opposite of self-studying?
Not really. Self-studying is more about how you approach your learning. It's when you set the direction. You choose the goals, what to focus on, and when to study. It doesn't mean you can't practice with others or get some guidance.
Oh, I see. So it's like you're not following a program someone else created, but you can still work with people now and then.
For instance, if your goal is to improve pronunciation, you can study the theory or listen to examples on your own. But at some point, you might want to practice speaking with someone. That's where staying connected helps.
That actually makes sense. Sometimes you need a second opinion, or just someone to give feedback. It's hard to catch every mistake on your own.
Exactly. And it's not just about feedback. Practicing with others can keep things fresh. Studying alone all the time can feel a bit isolating.
Yeah, and it could motivate you too. Like seeing someone else improve might push you to keep going.
So, while self-studying gives you control, it's okay and even helpful to involve others when you need to.
You know, sometimes it's just not realistic to sit and study for 2 straight hours, even if that's what your schedule says. It can feel overwhelming, especially if your mind starts wandering or you're feeling stressed.
Yeah, I've been there.
That's why taking short breaks is so important. Like a quick 5 or 10 minutes won't hurt. In fact, it could make you more productive when you get back to studying.
That's a good point. And during that time, you could stand up, make some tea, or just look out the window for a bit.
It's not about wasting time, but giving your mind a breather. And while breaks are great, staying motivated is just as important. When you're studying alone, you need to remind yourself why you're doing this. Think about what you could achieve if you stick to it. Whether it's being fluent, building confidence, or even just reaching a small milestone.
That's true.
And it's okay to celebrate those small wins. Like if you've learned 5 new phrases today, be happy about that. It doesn't have to be huge, but at the same time, don't let the breaks turn into stopping altogether. Self-studying can be harder than other types of learning, because no one's pushing you. You're relying on yourself. So it's easy to lose motivation if you're not careful.
Couldn't agree more. Just remember, self-studying doesn't have to be overwhelming. Take it one step at a time, and don't forget to enjoy the process. You're doing this for yourself.
So let's go over the steps on how to build a self-study routine. Number 1, set a goal. Make sure it's specific and manageable. Something like improving your vocabulary or pronunciation. Number 2, make a schedule. Plan it based on your own pace and habits, like studying in the morning if you're more focused then. Number 3, organize and prepare before you start. Have your materials ready so you don't waste time once you sit down to study. Number 4, dedicate a specific study space, somewhere that's only for studying. Number 5, avoid distractions. That means no scrolling through social media or playing games during study time. Number 6, stay connected while self-studying. Practice with a friend, join a group, or use apps to engage with others. And finally, number 7, take breaks if you need to, but stay motivated. Celebrate your small wins, and remember why you're doing this.
Thanks all for listening. Take care, keep practicing, and we'll talk again soon.
Before we end, let's go over some new words and phrases that may be new or unfamiliar to you. Vague, meaning not clear or specific. Example, her instructions were so vague, I didn't know what to do. Cramming, meaning studying a lot in a short period of time, usually before an exam or deadline. Example, I was cramming all night for my English test. Flexible, meaning able to change or adapt easily. Example, my schedule is flexible, so I can study in the afternoon or evening. Schedule, meaning a plan that shows when things will happen. Example, I made a study schedule to help me stay organized. Procrastinate, meaning to delay or postpone doing something. Example, I always procrastinate when it comes to practicing grammar. Frustrating, meaning something that causes annoyance or difficulty. Example, it's frustrating when I don't understand a new word right away. Fumbling around, meaning struggling to do something awkwardly or without preparation. Example, I spent 10 minutes fumbling around for my headphones before studying. Figure things out, meaning to understand or solve something. Example, I'm trying to figure out how to improve my English pronunciation. Feedback, meaning comments or advice on how to improve. Example, I asked my teacher for feedback on my writing. Shutting people out, meaning avoiding or ignoring others, not letting them get involved. Example, when I feel stressed, I tend to shut people out instead of asking for help. Thank you so much for listening to Quick English Fix. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow us for more English learning podcasts where you can learn through cozy conversations, relatable stories, and comfortable listening. Whether you're studying, relaxing, or even while you sleep. See you next time.